President Ivanov, Director Donfried, thank you very much for the honor for me to be the moderator of the presidential panel at the Skopje Cultural Diplomacy Forum. While preparing for the session, I thought, you remember like 2-3 decades ago, the three tenors started performing and they changed the world. So just imagine what can 6 presidents do once they start performing, especially 6 presidents who left a mark in our region. I will start this panel by a short trip down the memory lane. Some 20-25 years ago, I was a student of President Ivanov, of course. And at that time, I remember, of course, inevitable. I remember at that time, cultural diplomacy was not something that our diplomacy were eagerly embracing at that time. But there are multiple factors and multiple layers when we talk about cultural diplomacy. So at that time, especially young people in the Balkans, students as I was, were very eager to live in full democratic countries, very eager about the European integration. And all of a sudden, there was a brutal theft of the votes during the Serbian election. Then President of Serbia virtually stole the elections for 1996. The students revolted. They walked for 88 days, and I was, I think, 19 at that time. I addressed the students in Belgrade on behalf of the Macedonian students, supporting their fight for democracy, for European integration. And I met then Professor of Psychology, Boris Tadić. So we go back a long time. Later on, he also addressed a very interesting protest in 1999. At that time, the European Students' Forum decided to celebrate New Year's in Belgrade, of all places. It was a terrible place at that time, and the party did not end well. It ended with President Tadić at that time reading the names of the victims of it. But nonetheless, the protest generated a lot of, I would say, European and democratic dividend for the Serbian opposition. Also, another layer of cultural diplomacy is democracy promotion, European integration promotion as such. So I would start by asking President Tadić, what happened? In 1999 and in 2000, we dreamt that our countries, once we are done with fighting for democracy, will eventually join the European Union, and then we will live in full democracies and the like. What happened in between, and how did Serbian opposition spend its democratic and European dividend?
Thank you. I didn't know that I'm going to be icebreaker to start that kind of dialogue, but reminding ourselves on the 1990s, that decade, which was one of the most painful in our history, and very specific regarding European politics and the European future. I think that things are changing. I mean, the context is changing. Nowadays, we are living in the context of the war in Ukraine. I mean, only a few years ago, no one was able even to predict war in Ukraine. In that time, in 1990s, no one was able to predict what is going to be with Europe in this corner of Europe. Which countries are going to become member states? Which countries are going to be on the path towards European Union membership? And that is something that we have to take into consideration seriously. At the end of the 1990s, we've been hoping that one day, in the next 5-6 years, Serbia is going to become member state of European Union. We were very naive. In that time, we were fighting Milošević regime, fighting dictatorship in all aspects of fighting, taking all risks on our lives on our shoulders, and hoping we are going to bring Serbia in European Union in the only a few years ago, in the future. And nowadays, we are more realistic. I mean, not only because of enlargement fatigue, not only because we didn't fulfill all kinds of conditions and duties in accordance with the Copenhagen criteria, but things are changing so fast, and I don't know what is going to be nowadays, even with European Union. European Union is facing with a kind of problems, security problems, political problems. Structure of European Union is very much fragmented. The people that in that time were hope of Europe, for example, the president of Hungary, Mr. Orban, nowadays is very often criticized by European leaders because he's not following European values, and things are changing so fast. I'm still believer, I'm still a politician who truly believe that Western Balkans has to be integrated in European Union. I still believe that without European Union, all individual countries are facing with a huge problem in the future, having in mind the context of a political situation in the world. If we are thinking about Europe right now, we have to think what is going to be the final outcome of the war in Ukraine, and what is going to be final outcome of the conflict between United States and China in Pacific area. Because we cannot separate European future from these two conflicts. These two conflicts are bringing new strategically important contexts in the future, and who is not able to predict what is going to be final outcome of this conflict is going to bring European Union and European countries in a very difficult situation. Nowadays we see that some countries are facing with economic problems, for example Germany. This is outcome of the war, not only outcome of kind of weaknesses that are lying in the structure of German economy. I see that we can see that the relationship in the geostrategical context are changing very fast. We are not talking only about NATO. We are talking about influence of the NATO in Pacific area. We are talking right now about alliance between United States, Japan, Australia, and South Korea, or the Republic of Korea. We have a new geostrategical context, and but in 1990s, the end of 1990s, we thought in that time this is only about our membership in European Union. Right now, we are very much depend on the general context and what is going to be final outcome of these two strategical conflicts we are facing with. Sweden is going to become a member of the NATO finally. In that time, no one was able to predict something like that. I talked with Anne yesterday night, and just before conflict started to be our reality, only 70%, only 20 or 30% of Swedish citizens has been supporting the NATO membership. Now, when she said something like that to me yesterday night, I was reminding myself, when I used to be Minister of Defense, 2003, almost 40% of Serbs, only 5 years after we've been bombed by NATO, supported NATO membership of Serbia. Almost 40%. After recognition of Kosovo independence, that figure dropped to 5. Look how things are changing so fast, and how strategic decisions are creating new reality in our countries, in our continent. And I'm finishing with that. We have to be able to predict what is going to be in a foreign policy arena in the future. We've been facing with a kind of problem to understand our world in which we are living. We can understand the world only if we understand other phenomena, other countries, other cultural aspects. If we are not able to understand other people, other cultural aspects, other identities, we are not going to be able to predict what is going to be with our common world. Finally, I really hope that one day our countries not only Croatia and Slovenia are going to become member states of European Union. I'm thinking about, Bulgaria also. I'm thinking about Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Montenegro, Serbia, Macedonia. This is the very soft stomach of European security. Otherwise, I'm not sure that Europe is going to be safe enough and strong enough to be faced with the challenges in the future. Only integrated Europe is going to be able to be competitive on the global market, in economy, in politics, in all aspects of developing of the mankind, and new technologies, if in the next 10 or 20 years. Only integrated European Union with 500 million people, maybe 550 million people, maybe Ukraine in the future, is going to be able to be competitor on the global market in all aspects, in culture also. I don't see other solution. Otherwise, European Union is going to be really in very difficult situation in competition with China in the future, United States, maybe Russia is a global power, India is coming. This is how I see current situation.